Hello and welcome to Rediscovering the Beatles with Mark Morris. I'm Mark. Today I wanted to dedicate a show to George Harrison just because the filming of this is on February 25th, 2024. Would have been George Harrison's 81st birthday. The youngest Beatle would have been 81 today. So I just thought it would be nice to do a special episode on George. So I'm just going to go over some things I have, some little trivia, some quotes, look at my records. I wanted to start off with some of this trivia I found online from Mental Floss. It's called Mental Floss 10 Fab Facts about George Harrison. I'm not going to read them all. I'm just going to read a couple of them, but I'll link to the page down in the description. It's a nice little article. I don't think any really hardcore Beatle fan is going to be surprised by any of the trivia, but there's a couple things I just wanted to mention from the page. One of the things was Harrison invented the Megastar rock benefit concert. Before Harrison organized the 1971 concert for Bangladesh, there were performances for charity, of course. But when his friend, the great Indian sitar player Ravi Shankar, told him about the plight of Bangladesh refugees, victims of both war and a devastating cyclone, who now faced starvation, Harrison felt compelled to devote himself to the cause. He recruited stars like Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, Ringo Starr, Billy Preston, Badfinger, and Leon Russell, and together they played 2 sold-out shows at Madison Square Garden. They had raised more than $12 million by 1985, and profits from the sales of the movie and soundtrack continue to benefit the George Harrison Fund for UNICEF. I just thought that showed kind of George's character and his approach to the world. And then something for a little more salacious. I know you don't want to hear about all the good stuff. Well, this is good stuff. When George lost his virginity, the other Beatles cheered. So this the story for that. That's for that little juicy bit here. During the band's early years, they had extended runs as a house band in Hamburg, Germany, and were paid so poorly and had to be on stage for so many hours that they shared a small room in the club's basement. Hence the witnesses to George's deflowering at the age of 17. We were in bunk beds, Harrison recalled. They couldn't really see anything because I was under the covers, but after I'd finished, they all applauded and cheered. At least they kept quiet while I was doing it. So there's a little fun tidbit for you. I think a lot of Beatle fans have already heard this story and maybe even a few more details. Then I wanted to show you my brother Tom. He goes to a lot of auctions, and every now and again he'll find something that he thinks I'll be interested in, and he'll buy it for me. Well, one of the things he got for me, he got me a couple of the old vintage 1964 Beatle trading cards, but he also got me a bunch of these. I think they were produced in 1996. They're called the Beatles Authentic Vintage Beatlebilia. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I got a ton of these, but I'm just going to go over a few George ones because it's his birthday, and I want to spend some special time with George. So they have these pictures, and then on the back some information. So this one says, Beatle lead guitarist George Harrison was born in Liverpool on February 25th, 1943. That's why we're doing this today. Although at first the youngest Beatle wrote songs in the shadow of John and Paul, rock star's most prolific composers, George went on to create more than 20 excellent Beatles tunes, including Something, here comes the sun, if I needed someone, within you, without you, and while my guitar gently weeps. I'm not going to read all these, but I thought I'd show you. There's one with George and Ringo. There's one with George looking very officious. Here he is for his Hollywood close-up. And this is how I like to remember George. And then they mention some of his great hits. I have some favorite George songs while he was with the Beatles, and they are long, long, long. I just love that song. I don't claim to understand why I love it so much, but it's one of my favorite songs. I listen to it more than some of his other bigger hits. And then one of his earlier songs, I Want to Tell You. I just really like that song. I put it on when I used to make mixtapes for girls or young women that I had a crush on. If I really liked them, I'd Want to Tell You on there as a subliminal message for them. Anyway, those were some of my favorite George with the Beatles songs. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, we kind of discussed this in a couple other videos, but Matthew Street had mentioned the little guide to the Beatles book in one of his things, and I had this one and I had the one on John Lennon. I read from John Lennon's the other day. I went through and I just picked out a couple George quotes. What they do, this is called the Little Guide to the Beatles. What they do is they just take quotes from the Beatles, pretty simple little format. They take the quotes, and oftentimes they'll put the context underneath. But I just wanted to go through a couple of the George quotes. This is how he decided to write While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I decided to write a song based on the first thing I saw upon opening any book, as it would be relative to that moment. I picked up a book at random, opened it, and saw Gently Weeps. I then laid the book down again and started the song. I always love when these masterpieces occur at some kind of a seemingly spontaneous whim. That's how I like to work myself. And then this is about how George met Paul. I took from 4 o'clock to 5 to get home in the evening to the outskirts of the Speke estate, and it was on that bus journey that I met Paul McCartney, because he, being in the same school, had the same uniform and was going the same way as I was. So I started hanging out with him. I just love how all these things kind of came together in a just seemingly innocent way to create the phenomenon that was the Beatles. And then the last one I'm going to read to you is, while everybody else was going mad, we were actually the sanest people in the whole thing. I'm talking about Beatlemania. Then my story is that I gave away most of my records in the 1990s. I kept a precious few that I just couldn't part with. But what my mission now is to reacquire, especially the Beatle and Beatle-related records. And one of the things is I'm pretty much, I've got to my Beatle collection back to a really healthy state. I wouldn't be ashamed to show the Beatle collection to anybody. Now I'm going to try to start making my single Beatles or solo Beatles a little more robust. I wanted to go over some of these albums. These are all the albums I have of George, and it's going to look small just because I haven't started rebuying them all. But I wanted to show you what I had. I really like 33 1/3. And if you see my video, it's called The Beatle Who Replied. It tells the story of how when I was 14 years old, I wrote all the Beatles. And one of the Beatles replied to me. Guess who that Beatle was? It was George Harrison. And so he sent me this, or somebody sent me this 8x10 glossy with his signature on it. I've always loved that. It was right when this album came out. It was his first release on his Dark Horse Records. This album has taken a beating. I've had this ever since it came out. Back in the day, I was not a kid who took care of anything, and records were something I listened to, but I didn't take care of. I've changed. Believe me, I've repented. But anyway, that's always been one of my favorite stories, and my one connection to a Beatle that I really feel close to. Then I have his George Harrison self-titled album. This has like some pretty big songs. Not Guilty, Here Comes the Moon, Blow Away's on there. Faster's on here. Dark Sweet Lady, which is I believe is about his wife Olivia. If You Believe, I like that song too. And then this kind of general, the best of George Harrison. Side 1 is all about the stuff he did with the Beatles, and side 2 is more of his solo stuff. I don't know. I bet that's Olivia on the back. The solo stuff is My Sweet Lord, Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, You, one of my least favorite Harrison songs. It's a great song, but it is so repetitive, it drives me a little crazy. Bangladesh, Dark Horse, and What Is Life. Good little album. Well, some say it's the best of George Harrison. And then I never had this album on vinyl. But when I started getting my Beatle collection together again, I knew I needed this on vinyl. So George Harrison, Cloud 9, sounds great. Cloud 9's good. Devil's Radio is on here. Got My Mind Set on You, When We Was Fab. Just absolutely love that song. So those are my George Harrison's albums as of now. Of course, there are some big holes, most notably All Things Must Pass. I did have that. That's one I gave away. The box that the records came in, like a lot of people's, fell apart, and it was kind of rubber banded together to keep the records in. Eventually I will get that though. I believe that's all I have to say about George Harrison today, but wishing him a happy heavenly 81st birthday. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're a Beatles fan or George Harrison fan, I hope you found it entertaining. And if you're not a Beatles fan or George, I hope you found it entertaining too, though that would be less likely. I hope this video finds you in a good space where you're content with your life, or you're feeling happiness. If you are struggling and just feeling down, listen to George Harrison's Blow Away song. And I just encourage you to surround yourself with people that you love. Surround yourself with something you have a passion for. I kind of, without even trying, just saturated myself with Beatles music for weeks and weeks, and then I found myself feeling better, and it kind of pulled me out of a really deep funk. And that's why I wanted to start this channel. I'm like, you know what? I want people to find something they're passionate about. It doesn't have to be the Beatles. It could be running. It could be going to the gym. It could be reading. It could be painting. It could be, you might be one of those people that have those apps on your phone where you watch what planes are up above you. Anything that gives you joy, surround yourself with it. And I think eventually you'll start feeling better. And then take any love or joy you have within you and share it with the world. I think that's the best. That's the best course. Thank you for listening, and I'm so appreciative that you're here. I just thank you so much. I'm glad that you're here. I hope I see you again, and I will be signing off. Thank you so much.